So, hello everyone, my name is Alannah, this is Dara and Laura, and we've been working with Diff to help review some of their films. We're among 30 young people all around Ireland, and the film that we're going to be reviewing today is a Hungarian independent movie by, and I apologize if I get any of these names, if I mispronounce any of them, Lily Horvath. She's the director of it. It's her second feature film, and we're just going to be giving our reviews, giving our opinions on it, and we're also going to be discussing the difference between romance in independent movies and kind of romance in big Hollywood movies. So the film is called Preparations to Be Together for an Unknown Period of Time. Very long title, I know. And it's about this woman, Martha Vici, who goes to Budapest to meet a man that she met a month previous at a medical conference, and he doesn't show up, so she gets very worried, and when she finally tracks him down, he kind of refuses ever meeting her.
Who I've talked to about it, it was, for such a movie that I know is so well made and is so thought-provoking, I have no idea what I watched when I came out of it, and that's not a bad thing. It stuck with me and genuinely made me think and made me do a long, hard think. But a lot of the movie just confused me, I guess. I don't know if that says more about me than it does about the film. I liked it.
Laura, what about you? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought that, I think that the cinematography was really interesting. The choices that Robert Malley made in framing the faces. There was a lot of tight shots, lots of close-ups, and it really brought us into Marta's mind, because I think we see what she wants us to see. In a way, we see her fantasy. We don't see kind of the objective view. We see what's in her mind, and I think that was a deliberate choice, and I thought it was a really well-made choice. So yeah. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
I think one thing that obviously I really like the cinematography. I do find that in independent romance movies, it is kind of, the cinematography is a bit more intimate. Like, you don't just feel like you're watching this relationship, you feel like you're a part of this relationship, and obviously with Preparations, you kind of feel like you are Martha. And one thing I think, obviously, Dara, you said that you were a little confused by it. I think that's what helps bring us into Martha's mind, because she obviously doesn't know what's happening. She's like, did I fake this entire interaction? Like, did I even actually ever meet Janos in New Jersey? And then obviously the audience watching it were like, did she meet him? And I'm like, I was making notes and I was like, is this all in her mind? Is this like an entire fake story?
I think that's it. Just harping on that was, I remember the scene where Martha and Janos are just walking down the street and suddenly a train goes by, and that cliche where he's gone afterwards. It's scenes like that really, I felt like they have a really mixed message about the film. Like, I get we're seeing it from her perspective, and this is her trying to understand the situation as well. But there was no real resolution to stuff like that either. So it kind of left me a bit in the dark. I don't know. I was very just it was a bit unwieldy first.
But I felt like at the end it was a little bit unresolved as well. Like, it just kind of ended on the shot of the speakers, being hoisted up into her apartment, and it just ended there. And I think it was kind of a bit anticlimactic, because the whole way through the film you're in this kind of mystery. You're wondering, is it real? Is it not real? And then it just kind of ends. And I wonder, is that because her fantasy kind of ended when she got to know him? So we're taken out of it and it just kind of completely ended.
Maybe, yeah.
I think of that as well, because she kind of runs away from him once she learns more about his family life. Yeah. So maybe it's her perception of him being ruined, so she's kind of like, this isn't what I wanted, and tries to flee.
Yeah, it's kind of that a fantasy, like the grass is kind of greener a little bit when you don't know exactly what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So the fantasy of him was more attractive than him himself.
At the end, I do like how it's that's just me. I do like how it's kind of unresolved, and I do like that with independent romance movies, because obviously they don't know each other that well. Are they kind of going to go just be friends first and build up from there? Because like Laura said, her fantasy of him is absolutely ruined. She thought she was just meeting this great guy who was a fellow neurosurgeon, and then it's no, he has a family, and at first she thinks that he has a relationship that he was trying to hide from her, and thinks that she was just a fling, when it's oh no, it's a family, he has kids. And there is that little speech he does at the end where he's I didn't think you were going to take this seriously, and now you're here and I don't know what to do.
And I think that's kind of an interesting perspective to see it from his perspective. Very towards the end, it kind of feels like he becomes the protagonist in the last 10 minutes, because he's the one driving after the plot and trying to get the resolution, because he doesn't understand what's going on with her either. He wants that. He's almost like an audience surrogate. He wants to understand what she's going through. Yeah.
So one thing that I obviously wanted to talk about was, actually, before we move on to that, the character of Alex, the student. Did anyone find that obviously we're watching Martha go through this kind of this obsession with Janos, but we're also kind of seeing Alex have this obsession with Martha. And for a second when I was watching it, I was oh my god, Alex, he's so creepy. Why doesn't he just get the message? And then I was wait, Martha's also being creepy. So do you think they had the character of Alex so that the audience would either be distracted from Martha's behavior, so that we could kind of realize, obviously in films you see weird behavior in men, you clock it, but you see weird behavior like that in women, and you're oh, it's romantic. Whereas I was watching it and I was no, it's not romantic. She's stalking Janos the same way Alex is kind of stalking her. You're trying to piece it together. Did you kind of cop that when you were watching it?
No, that's a really interesting observation, because until you said it, now thinking back, I'm oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It kind of flips it on the audience to kind of pick out the parallels and mirrors between them.
I picked up on that when during the taxi scene, where the taxi driver goes, husband, and she goes, yeah. It's just that's not okay.
Yeah, she's just following him.
Yeah.
And I'm you don't know this man.
No.
But I think there's also an interesting commentary on, I guess, the role of men in women's life, because you see Marta's the protagonist, she's the main character, and the film kind of follows this woman, but every choice she makes is because of a man, or controlled by a man. Her obsession with Dr. Drexler, everything she does is kind of for him in a way.
Yeah.
And similarly in her profession at work, they don't take her seriously until she's proved right. They kind of dismiss her in front of patients, and there's kind of this whole underlying thing of men dominating in society,
even Alex is dismissive of her. She's a professional doctor and he's just a med student, and he's I don't want her operating, and it's she is the most qualified person here to do it.
Yeah.
I noticed a small version of that as well. When her friend from America comes to visit her, you see her job getting back in America is on the line of some man's opinion. She can only go back if he lets her.
Yeah.
And it's a much smaller one of that, but I think it goes through her whole life rather than just in her professional.
Yeah.
One of the main things that I want to discuss, because it's something that I notice, there's a big difference in portraying romance in independent films than there is in Hollywood films. I feel you guys know, I hate romantic comedies. I absolutely hate them with a passion. This woman meets a guy and then 3 days later she's I'm going to lose every job opportunity I have just to be with him. That is how to lose a guy in 10 days. I absolutely hated it. And but one thing I find is that Hollywood romance, it's very kind of mission orientated. A lot of the cases, you're given this woman, she has a successful job, she's great friends, she is able to afford her own usually massive apartment, And but like literally everyone in her life is like, unless you can find a man in the next 6 seconds, you're gonna die alone. And then that's all she cares about. Whereas in the independent movies I've watched, a great one that I recommend is Newness, directed by David Dormis. It's on Netflix. It stars Nicholas Hoult, and like it's absolutely amazing. Like it's about 2.5 hours long, but like it's worth it to watch it. And one thing I find with independent films is that they're not mission orientated. Like for me, independent movies show that life goes on even without romantic love. Whereas in Hollywood, it's like life is pointless without romantic love. And I do like how in the independent movies I've seen, they have that kind of quest, like the open-ended question at the end, like, are they gonna fight? Are they gonna go through this? Are they gonna work through this? And are they gonna be together?
Yeah, I definitely noticed that. I think there's a lot more of a structure in Hollywood movies, that there's like a specific format that has to kind of be hit in a way.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're quite confined to that, and they don't really deviate from that structure, you know, girl meets guy, and then, you know, it's kind of very predictable. Whereas in indie movies like this one, I think they follow, it's broader in a sense, that it's not just focusing on the relationship, it focuses on different themes, different, you know, like in Preparations, it's more of a story about Marta, about how far will you go in your head, kind of sort of way, how long will you follow this fantasy. And there's stuff going on obviously outside, there's different things going on, and at the end, again, like Alannah said, it's unresolved, so you don't know kind of at the end, like there's no, I guess the goal in Hollywood movies, in romantic Hollywood movies, is the girl gets the guy at the end, whereas in independent movies, not always, it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
In it, you know, it's kind of left ambiguous, which I like.
I think that's kind of the same. The only like, I'd be interested to see what you guys class this as. Call Me by Your Name. Is that Hollywood or indie?
I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't know.
It's quite unique for a Hollywood film, but it fits really well with indie. But it's very high budget indie, so I'm not really sure, because it has the structure of what I'd call an indie romance, which is it focuses much more on the two people coming together and the circumstance around it. Whereas Hollywood is about the kind of romanticization of it and the resolution, whereas it's very much the relationship is front and forward in indie, where that's complicated and there is life in the way.
Yeah.
I think that's the big difference between the two.
Much more grounded in reality, in real life. Indie films are much more kind of realistic in a sense.
Yeah.
That you have obviously obstacles and life gets in the way, rather than a complete pursuit and an end goal that you have to meet and fall in love with someone, you know?
Yeah.
There is in indie films, you see these quite, I want to say, like tender moments between people, like that are quite strange to see in Hollywood movies, but are so realistic. Relationships are such weird things that you see each other and you have these little routines for you and them, and that's the stuff that indie films really show, I feel, over it, and that's why they're so much more realistic feeling.
Yeah.
So to everyone watching, thank you so much for watching this. Like I said, there are over about 30 young people doing these, and we're all doing reviews for different movies. So those reviews should be on the Dublin International Film Festival website, and you should check them out. There'll probably be a few written reviews. People are doing podcasts. You should definitely keep an eye out for those. And if you can, go onto the Dublin International Film website and buy tickets for the movies. Now, I like absolutely amazing movies. Like, I think about, is it three or four are international movies? I think, is it?
At least from our own picks, all of them are international.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all have different. They're all international movies, and I've only seen 3, but these 2 have seen the rest, and they say they're amazing. So definitely buy tickets and check them out.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for watching this. Again, keep an eye on Dublin International Film Fest website. Goodbye.